Cartoons have always been an important part of our childhood, and some of the best cartoons have been those that came from one of the legendary studios, Nickelodeon. Nick has been praised for its programming, but what if we told you that sometimes Nick has made headlines for the wrong reasons? Before we get started on some shocking secrets, be sure to hit that red subscribe button to stay up to date on all things Screen Rant.
Mommy? Well, I'm not! Hey! The babies, knock it off!
The Great Angelica Feud. If you're a fan of the 90s, then chances are you will be flooded with major nostalgia feels when we mention a little show called RUGRATS. Maybe you've heard of it. Of course you have. The show was one of the first Nicktoons that were ever created, and if you're familiar with the time period, you'll know that the humor and what was allowed on television was a lot different. And like with the first round of most shows, it was all about finding the right balance of what was kid-friendly and what was a little too much. Rugrats was a bit more on the cautious side, compared to some other Nicktoons. We're looking at you, Ren and Stimpy. However, there was a debate among the writing staff about how to handle Angelica's meanness. Arlene Klasky thought that the toddler Angelica was too much on the mean side. However, Paul Germain thought that she dealt with some of the heavier emotions that come with childhood. Both sides can be argued, but alas, Germain was kicked off the show along with several other writers in 1993. The show was canceled in '94 but rose to massive popularity through syndication. So naturally, more episodes were produced in 1996, this time with a little bit less meanness to it.
Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby. Rocko? Mrs. Bighead?
Rocko's Romance Life. You know the saying that times change. And if you look back at some of Nickelodeon's older cartoons and content, it's pretty clear how much has changed. One of the more adult kids shows on the network was, of course, Rocko's Modern Life. If you go back and watch the show, there are plenty of moments which make you question why this was ever on a kids network. Just go back and watch it. You'll see what we mean. There are so many innuendos and jokes that you missed as a kid. Although it was less gross and not as mean as some of the other shows, it did tend to go a bit far with its not-so-subtle adult content. It was definitely no surprise when the show eventually went a little too far with its episode, Leapfrogs. In this episode, Mrs. Bighead, the croaky-voiced toad, was trapped in a loveless marriage and was desperate for a little bit of attention from a man. And so Bev Bighead tries to seduce Rocko. As you can imagine, the theme of adultery was too much and was deemed too inappropriate for kids, which resulted in the episode being pulled from the air.
Listen, Doug, try to concentrate.
Give up the Doug. Shows get canceled all the time, and sometimes we hope for them to get picked up and saved by other networks. However, in the case of Doug, many fans feel as though it was better left alone. But in 1996, Doug transitioned over to Disney and joined their Saturday morning lineup. Doug was such a hit that they ended up making a Doug movie in 1999. Talk about success. So what's not to love? Well, naturally, Disney made some changes. Like with the unique music, they changed the theme song, which was one of the best parts of the show. They also changed the characters. Like Connie, a character who was curvy, ended up being turned skinny. It was even part of the plot. Roger got turned into a rich kid and no longer lived in a trailer park. Doug got a baby sister, and he was voiced by a completely different actor. Fans are still not happy about it today.
Have no fear. I have many powers of vision.
Angry Beavers' last episode. In the era of Rugrats and Ren and Stimpy, we also had the Angry Beavers. Again, another show that was technically a kids show, but the subject matter was not so innocent. The premise followed two brothers, Norbert and Daggett Beaver, who left home to go out and explore the world, all while getting into escapades and shenanigans. But after 4 seasons, the Angry Beavers was to come to a close. So what do you do when your show is over? Well, go out with a bang, right? Co-creator Keith Kachorik decided he wanted the final episode to have the Beavers, Norbert, and Daggett realize that they were cartoon characters in a show that was about to be canceled. Although breaking the fourth wall works for some stories, we're looking at you, Deadpool. It was a no-no in Nickelodeon's book, and so the last episode was canceled. A little ironic, don't you think?
I don't believe this.
ZOEY gets canceled. But don't you just hate it when your favorite shows get canceled when you're not even expecting it? ZOEY 101 was one of Nickelodeon's highest-rated shows. It originally aired in 2005 and followed teen Zoe Brooks, played by Jamie Lynn Spears, as she enrolls in Pacific Coast Academy. The school only allowed boys previously, so we follow her and her friends as they journey through boarding school. Although the show only lasted 3 years, it received high praise, including an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Children's Program. Jamie Lynn Spears was one of the most popular teen stars and was at the top of her game. And not just because she was Britney's little sister. So why would a show like this come to an end? Well, there are some complications. The star of the show became pregnant, and while that might not have been an issue on regular TV shows, this was a kids show, and Miss Jamie Lynn was only 16 years old. Although it's unclear if that's the reason why it ended, it has also been said that the show just ran its course. Can't all be a coincidence though, right?
So much filth!
Invader Zim's trial. Be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. Nickelodeon wanted to bring some edge to the network, and they got it when they took a chance on Jonan Vasquez. The show was totally different and unlike anything we have ever seen. The outlandish humor and characters were a hit among viewers. The show unfortunately got canceled midway through the production of its second season. It wasn't any issues with censorship, believe it or not, but rather the expensive, high-quality CG animations. But the show remained a cult classic, especially with merchandise. So how could this awesome show about an alien receive any flack? Well, we'll tell you. The only thing worse than being canceled is to be mentioned by a defendant during a murder trial. In 2005, a young woman was found murdered in her home, and her neighbor was arrested and charged for murder. The killer mentioned a fascination with an episode of Invader Zim called Dark Harvest, in which Zim collects human organs in an attempt to seem more human. Needless to say, Invader Zim's reputation suffered after this. However, some witnesses say that his comments were made in passing and were not to be taken seriously.
Jake! Good morning! What you doing, buddy?
No time for adventure. If you're a fan of cartoons and are still a kid, or a kid at heart, chances are you've seen or at least heard of the Cartoon Network hit show Adventure Time. The show is full of random nonsense, creativity, imagination, and some of the strangest characters and plots. The show is kooky, wacky, and downright strange to say the least, but overall, it's an excellent time. The popular cartoon fantasy is about magic, adventure, and all kinds of awesome stuff. You might be thinking, what do Finn the human and Jake the dog have to do with Nickelodeon? Well, have we got a story for you. Nickelodeon has a segment called Nickelodeon's Random Cartoons, and in 2007 they had their hands on something big. Pendleton Ward's original pilot of Adventure Time was in their grasp, but they turned it down not just once, but twice. Turns out it was just a little bit too weird. You'd think Nickelodeon would be all over this, but alas, they weren't. The pilot went viral, and the rest, as they say, is history. The show totally revitalized Cartoon Network's programming. We wonder if Nickelodeon regrets their decision. What do you think? RUGRATS anti-Semitism controversy. We know what you're thinking. RUGRATS is in here for a second time? Oh yes, friends, this popular show is not free from controversy. RUGRATS has been praised for its depiction of Judaism and was popular among Jewish families for its portrayal of the half-Jewish family, the Pickles. The show had a Passover and Hanukkah special and gave kids some insights into Jewish ceremonies and family traditions. Arlene Klasky, who is a Jewish woman from a mixed family as well, believed that cultural representation was important, which fans loved. So it was quite a bit of a shock when the Anti-Defamation League accused a Rugrats newspaper comic strip of anti-Semitism in 1998. The outrage happened over a comic strip that featured Grandpa Boris reciting a prayer at Rosh Hashanah services while the protagonist baby, the curious Tommy Pickles, sits wondering what the adults are doing. The strip in question was not meant to be disrespectful in any way, but Abe Foxman of the Anti-Defamation League accused Boris's design of resembling anti-Semitic Nazi-era depictions of Jewish people. Nickelodeon's response was to withdraw the comic strip from circulation.
Huh. I don't feel any Oh my gosh, Patrick, you have a mustache!
SpongeBob's Endless Summer. Get in your boatmobile and rev up those fryers because we are sure hungry for some more SpongeBob news. The lovable sea sponge with the infectious laughter is a force to be reckoned with. He's been around for almost 2 decades and almost every kid knows his name. But as with every great show, it is not without its share of commotion and controversy. And among the many surrounding SpongeBob throughout the years, there was one in 2011 involving the hosts of Fox and Friends. The episode in question, The Endless Summer, follows Mr. Krabs trying to put more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere to accelerate global warming and create an endless summer. That way, everyone will pay to go to his pool. Fox and Friends attacked SpongeBob and said the show only presents one side of the argument. They accused SpongeBob and the Department of Education for pushing a global warming agenda at an event by handing out copies of the book SpongeBob Goes Green, an Earth-friendly adventure. However, Fox and Friends' accusation was inaccurate. The Department of Education did not show cartoons at the event, and the book was one of the many available for kids to choose from. Ren and Stimpy banned episode. When you think of sick and disturbing cartoons, we are willing to bet that Ren and Stimpy is pretty high on that list. As you may know, Ren and Stimpy was notorious for pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable for kids' cartoons on more than several occasions. The show was always more popular with the older kids, needless to say. Each episode always took it to the limit with its dark sense of humor. But one particular episode was so brutally violent that it caused it to be banned immediately by Nickelodeon. The episode in question is called Man's Best Friend. This episode totally crossed the line, and when it comes to Ren and Stimpy, that's saying a whole lot. The episode featured its regular questionable humor and references to tobacco, but one scene in particular was too much to handle. The scene depicted Ren using an oar to beat a character named George to a bloody pulp. Nick executives flagged it as too violent, which led creator John Kricfalusi to be fired, and the episode was removed from syndication. The only shocking thing about this was that it wasn't banned earlier. Well, there you have it, folks. Those were some dark secrets, don't you think? Are there any of these secrets that you already knew? Did we forget any? Let us know in the comment section below, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to Screen Rant for more awesome videos. As always, thanks for watching.